All right, so for this video, I'm going to be walking through the steps of creating a virtual environment from scratch and verifying that all of the pieces that we need to have exported for local variables and for paths are set up. So we're going to be using this gpt underscore clean.py file. And just so you know, the plan is to have all these files being up on Google Drive under GPT 8.18, today's date. And this, again, is the Python file here that we're going to be referencing and referring to for our Flask app. There are also then some HTML related files. There's this CSS file if we ever need to change the styling. And then the templates folder has two index folders, two HTML files and an index and results. This GPT clean is actually because I was testing earlier and had this virtual environment set up. So that's where this folder came from. But these guys will be part of what's zipped up and put up onto Google Drive. And then I'm going to be going through the steps over here, the last page of our Google Doc for today, and really, again, using the things that are in green to set up the virtual environment. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so over here in my terminal on Visual Studio Code, I can do an ls. Yes, I am. Okay. All right, so I can see there's the GPT clean .py file and then the two folders that I created earlier. Okay, so I'm in the right spot, and I'm going to set up this virtual environment to use GPT clean as the name of the virtual environment. So paste that in there, step A, and down here I get B, which is actually activating that virtual environment. Sure enough, that worked. So we can see GPT clean in parentheses. So I'll keep on going, step 4, and get that going. Happily that ran. We're on to step 5, getting the Flask environment set up. Okay, all good there. And copying this as well. Okay, so so far I've done 3A, B, step 4, and then A and B down here. The exporting of the Flask app is optional, so I'm going to be skipping that for this version, and if I don't deem that it's necessary, I'll just go ahead and clean that up and get out of there. Okay, so let me scroll right past this, and we're down to step 6. Okay, so step 6 is setting up our environmental variables that are basically stored on our local machine. And by doing these, this again is making sure that I can have the Spotify library access these files, these environmental variables, without having to hard code those values into our program. All right, and so for today's purpose, I've actually changed this, and I'll explain a little bit in a minute about why, but I'm going to go ahead and change this local port to being 5555, and putting that down here as the last environmental variable I'm going to export. Okay, and hopefully that means we should be ready now to run this code, which is just running the Python file, GPT underscore clean. So let's see if that works. Happiness so far. So we're running. It tells us where we should go. So we can just actually copy that, go to our browser, and paste it. And happiness. So let me go ahead and try to do Bruno Mars. And there we go. All right. So let me just go through a couple details then as far as what's happening. One of the reasons the port number is different today than it was previously is I've been testing multiple versions of the code, and I wanted to make sure I could give each one a separate port. So on the version that is now going to be the one that's up on Google Drive, I'm using 5555. I did have to go back to our app and change the ports, because if we have, remember, the redirect or URI has to be listed in our Jukebox account, and earlier today I had not done that, so it was giving me grief. So that's all set. So if you use this exact file the way it is, we're using port 5555, should be fine now because that's been added onto our list. Okay. One other thing just to note, this could have just been put into this spot right here instead of creating a separate variable and storing it, but it just makes it easier. So if you were to be in that spot where you wanted to have multiple versions of the code being tested, or different Flask apps even, then you can do this by putting a port number in here, and then this code down here previously just used to say app.run debug true without any of the host or port number. So by adding this in, we're able to override Flask's default, which is just 5,000, and then we can then also have more than one Flask app running at the same time. Okay, hope that helps